Janet Maslin of the New York Times says this film doesn't seem to have much of a focus, but it doesn't seem to want one either. Paul Atancio of the Washington Post calls its star an unusually adept verbal comedian, not so adept, to his credit, at this kind of slapstick. And Letterboxd user Andrew Bemis muses, I was reminded of something a friend said about this being the only 80s teen movie he likes because it serves as a critique of the Reagan-era, ultra-capitalist value system of other movies in the genre. I like it when the hamburger plays guitar. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Better Off Dead.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, and
that
welcome.
That was so gentle. That was very gentle.
I am trying to reserve my energy, John. I am so excited. It's the 100th episode of Ruined Childhoods.
The 100th episode of Ruined Frickin' Childhoods.
The 2-year anniversary of Ruined Childhoods.
Unreal.
It has been 2 years, 100 episodes of just coming up with remakes, reboot, sequel, prequel, spin-off, musicals, TV series, seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasms, spun off of these movies, podcasts. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
I mean,
I think this has been a lot of fun, and we're going to keep on going. And, we've got new podcast artwork that maybe you've noticed. There's going to be some other things. I am incorporating a brand new segment to the show, starting it on this one. We're going to see how that goes.
Yeah, no, it's all about evolution and progress and change. But we are sticking with our format, our goal, our modus operandi, our mission statement to take these beloved properties, these, whether they be classics, legit classics, cult classics, which are also legit classics.
Yeah.
Things that we like, things that you like, and finding the best possible way to breathe life back into them.
Well, ultimately, this is just a great opportunity for us to revisit movies that we like to talk about, and hopefully invite you, the listener, to do the same and to think about these movies, I don't know, maybe in a different way or discover new things about them. Hopefully that'd be pretty cool. And maybe make you think a little bit about how you might want them to come back, which is kind of like the secondary function of the podcast. Primarily, it's an opportunity for us to just spew weird knowledge and odd memories from our pasts relating to these movies.
Yeah. To pull back from the memory box and to dust off some of the DVDs.
Yeah.
And as I say, sometimes to make good on the investment that, whatever money I spent on a DVD that I have maybe watched once, to go back and watch it again, but also to view these movies in today's context, the context of 2021.
Yeah. And it's really interesting the way that the time period in which you're watching a certain movie can affect the way that you view it. And I know that for a lot of the things that we've watched over the past 100 episodes, I might not have seen them at this point in my life. Viewing a movie can change after you've had a big life change, like maybe a different job or having a child, or, just so many different things can really color the way that you watch a movie. And that's what I've been really experiencing a lot of. And also just seeing things differently and thinking about movies in a different way. And that actually came up a lot for me while watching Better Off Dead for this episode was like, I thought about it in a different way, and I was like trying to maybe decode what Savage Steve Holland was maybe going for or not. But that's the fun of movies, is like you can watch them in so many different ways if it's a good movie.
And the fun of it is also that you might see something in it that even the director might not have.
Maybe.
I know, so many times where I look at a movie and I interpret it a certain way. And it's, this is pretty much the same for any art form, where once the art is out there, it kind of becomes a shared property. And I know there's a bigger debate to have there, but I know that, like, personally, I've felt reading books and in teaching literature, for those unfamiliar, when I'm not doing this podcast, teaching high school language arts and
Daytime Dan.
Yes, daytime Dan. And it's, you look at a story, you look at a poem or a book, and you draw meaning from it, you discuss it, and you talk about it. And I always say to my kids, I say, look, the author is not going to all of a sudden jump into the classroom or join the Teams call to correct us and say, no, that's not what I meant. So, but what's cool is I often imagine that if we were to speak to some of these creators and artists, even if it's not something they've intended, it's valid, because, like I said, it becomes a shared property and it becomes something personal, which Better Off Dead is a perfect example of a movie like that I know is a personal movie for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting, a movie to kind of talk about, because this is a movie that, like, it wasn't a big success when it came out. John Cusack notoriously trashed it when it first came out, and
he walked out of a screening.
And like, but it has taken on this, second life in home video, and has just become notorious for a lot of like the quirks that it has. And boy, oh boy, is it quirky.
Yeah, and it bears a signature style. And even though Savage Steve Holland only directed 3 theatrical releases, and only 2 of them were really of his own creation, Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer, kind of a spiritual sequel, not an actual sequel. But it's cool because they bear such a signature style. A lot of that is owing to the incorporation of animation. But it's really something how a filmmaker who doesn't have a large filmography, at least like of theatrical releases, established so clearly in really one movie. I mean, 2 movies, if you think of this, and One Crazy Summer, but really establishes a style. And we will, I know, like, our focus is not on One Crazy Summer on this episode, but it's bound to come up.
Well, One Crazy Summer more incorporates the animation aspect, as John Cusack's character is an animator in that one. In this one, he is just a doodler, I suppose you could say. It's never established that he actually uses his drawings for anything, but in One Crazy Summer, they definitely play a much bigger role. And of course, they're the same exact style because they are Savage Steve Holland's own illustrations.
Yeah, but these days, Savage Steve Holland would be known more for his contributions to Nickelodeon programming.
Yeah. Was it Real Monsters, Fairly Odd Parents? Like, he definitely made his mark in a lot of those, I guess, like 90s Nicktoons.
Well, and coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, one of the co-stars in this film, Dan Schneider, is
Ricky,
has also known, and to fans of Head of the Class, Dennis Blunden of Head of the Class. Dan Schneider. And he created iCarly. The Keenan and Kel show, and he did Good Burger.
Henry Danger, Sam and Cat, Victorious, Zoe 101, Drake and Josh, The Amanda Show. I think it's an Amanda Bynes thing.
Amanda Bynes,
Guys Like Us.
iCarly.
What I Like About You. Executive producer for Kenan and Kel. Co-creator and producer of all that. So like, he is just swimming in that Nickelodeon dough.
He only just, I think, stopped working with them a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
2018. But Dan Schneider, and I believe for a while he was also working with another actor from Head of the Class, whose name escapes me at the moment, but the actor who played Eric in Head of the Class, who you might remember is the one kid who never sat in a desk. He would always sit on the side. He was and it's so funny because as a teacher, Head of the Class is one of those things that I think about sometimes. And it's like when a kid really doesn't want to sit in their seat, but they want to like go sit on the heater or something. Mm-hmm. I'll think about Eric and I'll be like, he made quality contributions to class and he didn't sit in a desk. So
yeah, so that's Brian Robbins, and allegedly he is the current president of Nickelodeon.
Okay. Oh, I did not know that about Brian Robbins, but yeah. So you see a lot of I guess evolution from these movies to that. And if I were more familiar with that Nickelodeon programming, I would elaborate. But my familiarity with Nickelodeon programming, original programming, kind of tapers off in the early 90s.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it kind of ended right around like Doug and Rugrats, and right before like Real Monsters. That was kind of where I was starting to get into more serious things like Saved by the Bell.
More adult entertainment, more mature
absolutely.
Themes, topics, drug addiction, things like that. Which is all just
a gateway to Degrassi.
Well, and there you go.
And there you go.
So go ahead.
Well, we're kind of really going into it. Well, it's kind of weird to talk about news because we're actually recording this an entire week before this episode comes out. So the news, I think, of the day is all about this Charlie and the Chocolate Factory prequel, all about Willy Wonka's early life. That's the only thing that I've really seen come up that has struck controversy. We are recording this the eve of the presidential inauguration, so there's a lot more going on in the news than sequel and prequel and reboot and remake news.
Yes, admittedly so. But the Wonka thing has made some headlines.
Sure.
And
yeah.
Are we there? The questions are out there. Are we following the backstory provided in the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory adaptation? There's no backstory in the book. There's no backstory for Willy Wonka in the book. But the Tim Burton adaptation, for the record, is a much more faithful adaptation of the book than the 1971 Gene Wilder.
Which is arguably just a better, more enjoyable movie.
Another conversation for another time.
Okay.
Yeah. So... But there's a whole backstory in that where he's the child of a dentist.
Oh, I remember that.
It's like Christopher Lee. And Christopher Lee was like the overprotective dentist who was very stern and serious. And he had young Willy Wonka in like just this huge like headgear thing.
Right.
Kind of similar to what one of Lane's dates wears in Better Off Dead.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, hopefully... just as, my opinion, I hope that they don't kind of go down that road. I hope that it's more of a Gene Wilder-y, phase kind of things where it's like rooted more in reality and less, I don't know, sensationalized, because the Tim Burton's, if I remember correctly, that early Willy Wonka childhood stuff, it's, it feels very 2000s Tim Burton-y.
It was very tacked on, though I from what I read, the little bit that I read about this prequel is that it'll focus not so much on his childhood, but on his traveling the world, which the Tim Burton movie does focus on a little bit, but not as much. I did see on Twitter an interesting casting suggestion of Jason Mantzoukas as the younger Willy Wonka.
I would love a Greek Willy Wonka. That would be fantastic. Jason Mantzoukas, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's really kind of what it depends upon is the script and whoever you are casting as Wonka, because now this is going to be your third cinematic Willy Wonka. And, you know, people have a bad taste from not just from the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka, just from Johnny Depp.
From Johnny Depp, yeah.
So, you know, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with it? I don't know. We'll wait and see what's coming down the line with that. But yeah.
Do you have any one more things from our Bowfinger episode? I don't think I do.
I don't. No.
Okay.
I think
it was a perfect episode.
It was. There's nothing to add. It was perfect. It was a 5-star episode.
Yeah. So let's talk about Better Off Dead, 1985. 85, right?
85, yeah.
85. I just have a very brief synopsis because this is one of them where it's like if you just start going into details, it's a real can of worms. All right. Confident teenage dink Lane Meyer is at a potential moment of greatness. He's dating Uber babe Beth, and he's about to join the high school ski team. But when ski team captain Roy Stalin fudges the timer results, Lane doesn't make the team, and Beth leaves him for Stalin. Utterly dismayed, Lane decides that without Beth, life has no meaning, so he considers ending it all. Once snapping out of it, Lane tries his best to win Beth back, but doesn't end up finding success, leading him deeper and deeper into suicidal depression. He eventually finds purpose, thanks to the foreign exchange student across the street, who gives him perspective, a boost in confidence, and some quote-unquote language lessons. So John Cusack plays Lane Meyer. David Ogden Steers is Al Meyer, his dad. Diane Franklin is Monique Junet, the foreign exchange student from across the street. You might also remember her from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Kim Darby is Jenny Meyer, his mom, who was in True Grit, the orig. And Curtis Armstrong is Charles DeMar, his best friend. Amantha Weiss, who is in Nightmare on Elm Street, plays Beth. Aaron Dozier plays Roy Stalin. And man, oh man, is he so good. Damian Slade is Johnny, the paper boy, who Dan and I certainly love because of his performance in Back to the Beach, which is certainly...
As Bobby, he's got the switchblade comb.
He's got the switchblade comb. I love that kid. I wish that we would have seen more from him. We have Scooter Stevens as Badger, Lane's brother. Let's see. Oh, we already mentioned Dan Schneider, who plays Ricky, the dork from across the street. Taylor Negron shows up in a 1 minute scene as a mailman, and it's amazing. We have Vincent Chiavelli as the math teacher. And then we have E.G. Daly, who a lot of people would know from the aforementioned Rugrats, the voice of Tommy Pickles, but also this same year, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, she was Dottie.
Dottie.
But
yeah.
she is just in this as a singer. That's all.
She's singing at the school dance that for some reason their school is holding a dance between Christmas and New Year's.
Whatever. This movie seems to have a lot of things that are kind of shoehorned in there just to create a moment. And I think that this was one of them.
No complaints.
Yeah. So Dan, what I was saying before about how I kind of saw this movie differently this time than I had before, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are, but how much of what we see do you think is in Lane's head? You know, the globby raisin dinner that his mom makes, crawling off the plate. And I mean, clearly we see his drawing come to life in an animation that's obviously in his head. And we do see a lot of flashbacks and stuff. Those are in his head. But there's, I want even the math class that he's in where everybody's just completely enraptured by Vincent Chiavelli. How much of that do you think is just the way he interprets the world, where he is just completely on the outside of an inside joke, and the reality is that everybody is in a different world than he is?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. and something that definitely occurred to me is that we are very much seeing the world of high school through the eyes of this Lane Meyer, who wants to be a jock, isn't quite a jock, like he's got the girlfriend who, Amanda Weiss. Okay. I personally, Diane Franklin, wins for me, but, he's trying to fit the mold.
Right.
And I wonder how much of this is, it really makes you think back. Or at least it made, me think back both to my own high school experience, but also thinking about just the reality of high school, which honestly, as I was watching it, there was a lot of the high school moments that, even though they were surreal and exaggerated a little bit, I felt like it captured the mindset of being in high school. What are all these people thinking? Like his only friend really is Charles, who has been going there for 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating. It really captures the experience of like a high school weirdo who, is borderline popular. And, it's like he certainly does. Yes, you're saying like he wants to be this jock. He wants to be this popular person, but he can't help being very much himself. Like he skis with like welder's goggles and he drag races these two guys that, one of them has like a Howard Cosell voice. And
sorry, we should point out the names of
Yuji Okumoto and Brian Imada.
And you would know Yuji Okumoto from Karate Kid Part 2. Well, yeah, I don't know. Spoilers,
and season 3 of Cobra Kai.
Yeah. So, and I have yet
so
to
good in
make
Karate Kid Part 2. He's so good.
He is wonderful.
He's so menacing.
Had we not been in the middle of a quarantine, I would have made the trip up to his Hawaiian restaurant in Seattle.
Oh, no way.
Unfortunately, not that close to where I live in Seattle, but yeah, he and his family have a family run Hawaiian Kona kitchen.
Oh, that's so
in
cool.
The northern end of the city. So he's great. Unfortunately, sad story that I read. Not really sad story, but just unfortunate. He really worked hard to do the Howard Cosell impersonation, and then they just overdubbed him with comedian and impressionist Rich Little.
Yeah, here's a clip from the very first time that we see and hear that character pulling up to Lane in kind of forcing a drag race to happen, which seems to be something that has happened regularly, that Lane always loses.
It's an awesome spectacle, an audacious display of seething opponents, once again parallel in an obstinate attempt to prove superiority of the ropes, unequaled in our lifetime. The crowd swell with anticipation as the lights turn green.
Yeah, so that's just a little snippet,
but again, how much of that is real?
How much of that is, well, I think that one would be a little bit more real, because we do have the scene where he is in the car with Monique and Ricky. And yes, and where she actually slams down on the gas and they go. And
but on the topic of how much of this is real and how much is in his head, I was thinking to myself as I was kind of sitting down to watch it, what if, and I don't think this is the case, but what if his first suicide attempt was successful?
Oh,
and the rest of this, his brother builds a rocket ship that takes off, a laser.
Yeah, it's all very sensational. So here's just a little clip of, so Lane, after he is dumped by Beth, decides to hang himself in his garage while his mom is vacuuming in the rest of the house.
Wait a minute here. Wait, this is death here. I haven't even been to New York City. Jesus, I haven't even been anywhere.
Yeah, so she knocks the door right open into him, and I mean, it doesn't show him recovering, so
he's hanging there. He gets knocked off the step, and he's hanging. So I just don't, and that's kind of one of the, I don't want to say a qualm that I have with this movie, but just something that I think, I don't know that Savage Steve Holland necessarily knew at the time what was real and what was in his head. I think, yeah, just because a lot of the signs that would normally be there are not, like, I was looking for a lot of this symbolism in it. And I do think that ultimately it is just the story that's really from the perspective of this guy who is struggling. He, like you said, he can't help but be himself, even while he's trying to fit another mold.
Right. Well, so the story is allegedly semi-autobiographical for Savage Steve Holland, who, you know, went through a bad breakup when he was young and like did the same thing where he like tried to hang himself with an extension cord, and you know that kind of made him write down all these crazy ways where someone would potentially stupidly fail at killing themselves over and over again, and kind of got built around that. But you know, as I was talking about that, I was just thinking of another thing where his perception of the reality might not have been the actual reality, and that is Beth breaking up with him, because what she says is completely ridiculous.
Listen, Lane, I think we should talk. We've been seeing an awful lot of each other lately, and I really think it's in my best interest if I went out with someone more popular. Better looking, drives a nicer car.
I mean, the idea that somebody would actually say that, and I understand that this is a very sensational movie, even the stuff that is rooted in reality, but like, that's a pretty... That seems to be like something that somebody would be perceiving that someone else, like the subtext that somebody had when they were doing a breakup.
Right. Well, and I mean, it is also kind of keeping with 80s teen movie tropes.
Yeah, that's true. This does play with
the popular girl. The popular girl is just kind of, you know, biding her time with the, you know, the nice guy, the so nice guy,
right?
Until, you know, the Roy Stalin comes along. But
Roy Stalin,
and man, he out Ted McGinley's Ted McGinley. Ted McGinley plus you know, any William Zabka character, yes, times
10 equals Roy Stalin.
Oh, he's terrible. But again, that's more exaggeration. And I think that the consistency of exaggeration definitely suggests that a lot of this is in his head. Also, with the bit about the car, you have to remember he's got that Camaro just sitting there. He has no idea what to do with cars. He even tells Monique he has a phobia of tools, but he buys this Camaro that doesn't do anything, and it sits there. So, which was another thing that made me wonder, like, is he dead at one point? Because things start to come together, and this, you know, magical, wonderful French exchange student shows up at his neighbor's. Yeah, perhaps not the original. I mean, Shirley MacLaine in The Apartment.
Right. Yeah.
But she shows up and she like fixes his car with him, and she helps him like, you know, like you said, race against the guys, Howard Cosell
the Ree
guy.
brothers. Yeah.
The Ree brothers. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of things come together. He ends up skiing the K-12.
Right.
On one ski.
On one ski. Right.
But there's so many things. The part when with all the paper boys, when all the paper boys are coming out of the fog.
Oh yeah. So
the part with the paper boy on like the ski bike.
That's ridiculous. So one of the probably most memorable things about this movie for most people is the paper boy and the line $2. And it's just one of those things that's just this thread in this movie that kind of helps get you out of scenes, but also pushes that final race down the slopes into a more ridiculous direction. But yeah, I just want to play a little clip of the first time that we meet Johnny the Paperboy.
Johnny.
4 weeks. 20 papers, that's $2 plus tip.
Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry.
Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
Well, it's funny. See, my mom had to leave early to take my brother to school and my dad to work because...
$2. Cash.
See, the problem here is that my little brother this morning, he got his arm caught in the microwave and my grandmother dropped acid and she freaked out and hijacked a school bus full of penguins. So it's kind of a family crisis, so come back later. Great.
Yeah, and also what I'm thinking of when I'm hearing these clips of John Cusack is thinking like this is very early John Cusack. You know, before this, he was in Pretty in Pink, but also like The Sure Thing. But this was like kind
16
of
Candles.
16 Candles. You're right, not Pretty in Pink.
And
but yeah,
Sure
so
Thing.
like in The Sure Thing. But this was like, you know, his next like push to becoming like a bigger star. And you're really hearing his style, his personality come out, you know, that kind of like fast talking, weird wit that he is known for is like really blossoming in this movie. It's so wonderful.
Oh yeah. You can totally hear like Gross Point Blank.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
High fidelity. Absolutely.
And now it makes me wonder, like, if we're gonna like, you know, I guess analyze the meanings of, you know, how much of this is exaggerated. Is he dead? Is Johnny the Reaper? Like he's constantly following him. He's on his back. I mean, and also he's chasing, like he chases him down the mountain where he could easily like get seriously hurt and or die. Right. Skiing the K-12.
Yeah.
As is well established. So I you know, if you look at it from that angle, Johnny could be that type of character.
The harbinger of death. Yeah.
The harbinger of death.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. So maybe he's not actually dead, but maybe he's, you know, that's the personification of death chasing him. And he is freed by Monique's tutelage. You know, the way that she boosts his confidence. So yeah, I don't know.
I mean, what's the cost of a human soul? $2.
$2. There you go.
That's not backed up by anything. But yeah, there's weird things like when he wears the socks in the shower. That's me
just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm looking for symbolism where there isn't any, because I do that.
I do get the feeling that Savage Steve Holland likes to make things weird for the sake of them being weird.
Yeah.
Not to say that there isn't meaning behind these things, because it's fun to think about that. It's fun to think about, I don't know, what if this was all intentional?
And I mean, his only friend, Charles, is, you know, not only has been in high school for 7 years, is constantly looking for drugs and ways to get high.
Yeah, that's kind of a really funny through line. Yeah, he's obsessed with doing drugs, but just can't get anywhere. So he has to improvise, snorting Jello and doing whippets and things like that.
Snorting snow.
Snorting snow. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna play a quick clip.
Yeah.
This is from after the math class, and this is where we really get a sense of like who Charles DeMar is.
Listen, I've been thinking about what you told me last night, and I've decided I'm going to help you.
How?
Lane, I've been going to this high school for 7.5 years. I'm no dummy. I know high school girls. 2 things. 1, how about your sax? I mean, the thing about Roy is he plays the guitar.
He does?
Yeah, girls love that. Why don't you take up your sax again?
Number 2?
The K-12, dude. You make a gnarly run like that and girls will get sterile just looking at you.
Nobody delivers a line like Curtis Armstrong.
No. Well, I love, and it's not really it's hard to play an audio clip of it because it's so visual, but at the dance when after the joke that Roy makes about Lane or about telling like Charles to shave close so that when they make out or something like that.
Yeah.
And Curtis Armstrong like just cracking up,
can't stop
going
laughing.
way over.
Yeah.
Goes up to him like 2 minutes later.
Still laughing.
It's
so great.
It's so great.
I mean, Curtis Armstrong, like, he was cast in this because of his performance in Risky Business. And it's just like, take his character from Risky Business, crank it up several notches, and then you get here. And then like Booger is just like a slight detour from this. And in Revenge of the Nerds, I'm not just calling him a booger, but yeah, I mean, just nobody does it like Curtis Armstrong. Like, he really figured out this way of acting, and he just like knows how to deliver these lines so beautifully. I'm no dummy.
Yeah, the pacing, rhythm, everything about it is great. But getting back to the idea of like just the world of high school,
yeah,
and like what they get right, even though it's slightly exaggerated. First of all, Vincent Schiavelli as the
right.
This rock star math teacher, and
yeah,
I have to call out. So you have a few, you've got a lot of actors who were in other teen comedies in the early 80s, and both Taylor Negron and Vincent Schiavelli were in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Mm-hmm. Vincent Schiavelli also like is one of my movie teacher inspirations in that movie, just for the moment when he comes in the first day of school and goes, "I just switched to Sanka, so have a heart."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, that's me. But in this, he's such a rock star.
He's great. I'm just going to play that clip really quick.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, such great casting. His look is so specific. He's the kind of person where if you don't recognize his name or his voice from the clip I'm about to play, like, you would know him the second you saw him.
Mm-hmm. The 3 cardinal trapezoidal formations hereto made orientable in our diagram by connecting the various points HIGK, PEGQ, and LMNO, creating our geometric configurations, which have no properties but with location, are equal to the described triangle CAB quintuplicated. Therefore, it is also the 5 triangles composing the aforementioned NIGH, each are equal to the triangle CAB in this geometric concept. Therefore, in a like manner, the geometric metaphors can derive a repeated vectoral sum. This was your assignment, and I would like to see the results. Please, take them out.
Right. So this is one of those examples where I again feel like it seems to him like people are taking out these like dot matrix printers and giant file folders and all these things for their homework assignments because he knows that he didn't do the homework. And so to him, it looks like anybody who's prepared is like some sort of genius. I don't know. That's
right.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, thinking back to your own high school experience, and it makes sense. And even though, yes, it's exaggerated, you get where that's coming from. So viewing everything being viewed from the perspective of Lane, who's kind of, it just has this sense of impending doom all the time, where nothing is going to go right. I mean, even when he tries to make things go right, they don't. He tries to pick up a cheerleader in the cafeteria by just in the most awkward and worst way possible. That exaggeration really, to me, watching it made sense, and I could see where it was all coming from. So in the school context, and also in the context of the home, because when you're how many teens, especially in the 80s, I think there was much more of a generational gap in the 80s than now. I think parents, by and large, are more attuned to what teens are doing.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've got David Ogden Stiers, who is referring to how, you kids are into that disco. Yeah. And he's
like reading a book about how to like relate to his child. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's very by the numbers and doesn't really relate well to anyone.
Well, I have to give his character a lot of credit, because at the very beginning, this guy is just getting shit on nonstop. He's trying to avoid the paperboy throwing the paper through the window of the garage, but all the windows break anyway. And then he's trying to take out cereal boxes, but Badger has clipped out all of the coupons from them, so the cereal just comes pouring out. His bacon is boiled because Jenny, his wife, has been trying to do all this crazy cooking stuff, and he didn't like the oil of bacon and stuff. So he's just having like he's just constantly getting the shitty end of the stick. But he's still really trying to connect with his son. Even though he doesn't understand him, he's concerned about him. He's not trying to tell him to get the car out of the driveway. Like that's just one little thing. But then he's also just like, maybe you should start dating again. Because, maybe what you need is to start dating again. And then he does have that book where he's trying to like talk to him using like lingo. Of course, the book is very outdated and he's not getting anything right. And then he's reading the book about like, is your teen on drugs and stuff. And it's like, he's putting in the work. He's trying to figure things out and actually like be a good dad. And you could look at him as being like a really overbearing, father, but no, I don't know. I don't know if it's being a parent myself that is making me look at him in a more respectful light than I ever would have. But he's putting in a lot of work.
I don't think he's overbearing. I think he's slightly, I don't want to say aloof, but there's a disconnect. There's definitely a gap in, a generation and in understanding. He's also got, his wife, who is
space cadet.
Very much so, though. I mean, it leads to some very funny scenes. The scene when Rick, the Smiths come over with Monique for dinner, for example.
Yeah, here's a little clip from that.
Have you met Monique?
Hi.
Now, in honor of our special guest, I've created dinner mondieu. First, we have French fries and French dressing and French bread. And to drink, ta-da, Peru.
Jenny Meyer, you really do go to the outer limits to make an impression.
Peru is Perrier. That one is so weird.
Is it just me, or does she seems like very skittish? Like, I would almost say she seems like there's some type of abuse going on, though you don't really get that at all from David Ogden Stiers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, we are not psychologists. We are the last people on earth to try to diagnose someone's behavior. But, it does seem like there's something going on there. She's very bizarre. She's got, she's currently on this kick of weird cooking. And, it's like I don't know, does her own thing. And even Lane says to Monique when they're in like the cafeteria the next day after that scene that like, she means well, she's just kind of going through a thing right now. And, she's he loves his mom. It's not like my mom's crazy kind of situation.
Yeah, no, but she's also like another one who, again, the word that I'm looking for is not quite aloof, but she is operating in her own universe. Yeah. And I guess it was the bacon thing that made me think that, because she's so afraid of displeasing her husband that when he says that, I don't really, the bacon, I don't really like the oil on the bacon, she boils it.
Yeah, she tries, I think that okay, here's the thing, is she hears the small things that people say and takes them to extremes. So that's one case where it's like, doesn't like the oil? Simple, boil it. Or for Christmas, she gives Lane all of these TV dinners because she's like, well, you like the peach cobbler in this one. Like maybe he said one time like, oh, this is pretty good. And like she clung on to that and now gave him a stack of TV dinners.
I love how that pays off, by the way. When he makes, when
the
he
TV
ends
dinners
up having the dinner with Monique, having the dinner date with Monique, and he makes her the TV dinners. I got these for Christmas. Yeah. Which is so nice and so genuine. Yeah, that was really, that was fun. Yeah. But yeah, Kim Darby is fantastic.
Yes, she is absolutely phenomenal. What else has she been in? I mean, aside from True Grit, I know. I'm looking her up right now.
Yeah. I thought she was in...
She was in Teen Wolf 2.
Okay, I was just about to say Teen Wolf 2.
2 years later. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, she was... I think she's the werewolf teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it in forever, but I remember that pretty clearly.
She did an episode of The X-Files, Murder, She Wrote, Facts of Life. Yeah, she's, just like worked a ton.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
but
she's just so wonderfully quirky. Yeah. Another thing came to mind about things that could be completely in his head that aren't really happening, but it's everybody talking to him about, like, asking him if it's okay if they ask Beth out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
no, that
Vincent
was something...
Schiavelli is, he asks him if he can ask Beth out, and then you see her in the car with him. And then there's the Taylor Negron scene, which I'll play right now. And so this clip starts off where he's the mailman and he's going through everybody's mail. And the first person he talks to is somebody who has 0 lines in the whole movie, and that's Badger, the brother.
Hi, Badger. Your book on how to pick up trashy women came today. Tell me something. What's a little boy like you doing with big boy smut like this? Hi, Lane. I was just wondering. I mean, I know that we don't even know each other, but I know that you were going out with that girl, Beth, and I can see that you're not going out with her anymore, and I was wondering if perhaps I could just be with her.
Taylor Negron is in this movie for like 1 minute, and it just kills it. You just see him and you smile. You're just like, something is about to happen with this dude.
Well, because when you first see him, he's walking down the street, listening to his Walkman with the mail, dropping pieces of mail and not picking them up. So, yeah, you're in for something good. And I'm trying to think, is there anyone else who asks him about dating Beth?
I think it's just the two of them.
Yeah, I feel like it. Yeah, that works. Yeah,
that works.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think. I was like, what other characters would I have liked to have seen? Like, Ricky's mom, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What about that? What about when like Ricky's mom blows up? Because
right. So that's during
what does he bring, like,
the French fries scene.
What does Lane? He has got like paint thinner because he's gonna go set himself on fire.
Right. So
and then he ends up just pouring it.
Yeah, and now we also need to recognize that there's some parallels between this and Harold and Maude, except for Harold and Maude, he's doing it, faking it for the sensationalism and the shock factor that he's not getting. But for this, it's kind of like these weird faux attempts at doing it for real. And yeah, he's going to light himself on fire, and it's like, oh, come to dinner. What?
It's interesting. No, I didn't. I hadn't made that connection. And now I'm thinking about the mothers and how the mother in Harold and Maude doesn't really take his suicide attempts or his mock suicide attempts seriously.
I don't know if there's really too many parallels to draw with the mothers, aside from the fact that they are both in their own worlds. And
right. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting parallel. I don't find it to be intentional. I mean, I don't know. It's not inconceivable that Steve Holland would have been inspired by Harold and Maude.
Right. Now, I want to play a quick scene. Actually, this is a little bit longer, but this is after that dinner. And this is the first time that we're hearing Monique speak English. And I'm playing this because it ends in a way that I want to bring back while we're on the subject of Harold and Maude.
Something wrong, Monique? Nice talking to you.
Hey, yes, something is wrong. This, how you say, dark head, is an unleashed sex fiend. Huh? Ricky, he will not leave me alone. He thinks because I stay here, I am his love goddess, his prostrate. No, prostitute.
Holy shit. You big faker, you speak English.
But of course I speak English. I speak very good English. I will not, however, speak Mrs. Smith's, qu'est-ce qu'elle dit? International language of love with this reptilian son. Mon Dieu.
Well, honk my hooter. I don't believe that. I mean, you've understood everything we've said this whole time?
Look, Lane, if you were living with a family like that, the less you spoke, the happier you would be. I promise you.
God, I never thought of that.
I thought if Casanova and I and Zara had nothing to say to each other, he'd get bored. Go away. Instead, he uses it as a chance to put his testicles all over me.
His what?
How you say, octopus, testicles.
No, tentacles. NT. Tentacles.
Tentacles.
There's a big difference.
All I want is to come to the States and see Dodger Stadium. Now all I see is that face in my door every time I move.
Dodgers, huh? I notice you have a pretty good pitching arm.
Well, what else is there that is of interest in the States but the Brooklyn Dodgers?
I don't know. You might find a nice friend. You do have friends in France. You know. Friend.
Then you will not tell?
That you're a Dodgers fan?
No, that I speak English.
Cross my heart and hope to die.
Do you?
Not at the moment.
So it's that cross to die, not at the moment, or do you really not at the moment? It's kind of like how Maude, kind of took Harold out of this death phase of his life and kind of brought him into this embracing life phase. So
yeah.
Look, I am sure that there was some influence. Savage Steve Holland for sure liked Harold and Maude. There's no way. There's no way he didn't.
Well, no, it's a dark dark comedy, you know?
Yeah.
But so I want to
And
come
also,
back
by
to,
the way, another, you know, I speak good English or whatever it was, like in Bowfinger. Yeah.
Oh,
you had commented about the line of Bowfinger.
They don't even speak English good.
Yeah.
So, but I want to take it back to another character, and I'm curious to know how much of this guy is in Lane's head. Roy Stalin. His last name is Stalin.
God. Yeah, they never really talk about that. It's so good.
But I think about how he's he's in high school. He's probably learning about Joseph Stalin.
Right.
So,
is
and I'm sure Royce, like it's a real person in the movie, but you know, how much of that is it? Like, it's almost like this guy, Roy Stalin, who you think would have better things to do. He plays the guitar. He's captain of the ski team. He's dating Beth.
Yeah.
Yet he's really fixated on messing with Lane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every chance he gets.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even when Lane is at his lowest of lows, you know, in the intro, we mentioned the hamburger playing the guitar. That's another thing that this movie is very well known for, is the claymation dream sequence where Lane is working at this burger joint. And this is another one of those things where I feel like this whole job at the burger joint is set up just so that we can have this claymation dream sequence with Van Halen's Everybody Wants Some. And so after this moment, he's getting fired and he gets thrown onto the ground. He's wearing the stupid pig chef's hat. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he looks up and there's Beth at a table with Roy Stalin.
Buenos dias! Looking really good today, buddy. Looking real good.
The woo is so good. What an odd choice.
and he like comes back. He does it again. By the way, by the way, in that sequence, I feel might have influenced a somewhat similar sequence in UHF.
Oh, yeah. The burger dream sequence. There's
well, in the beginning when Weird Al is he's daydreaming and he wakes up and everything is, you know, I don't think everything is burning, but he has that dream sequence and gets fired by a Big Edna.
Right, Big Edna.
Yeah. So, you know, I feel like this movie is not just building off of influences, it is also providing influences.
Yeah,
perhaps.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's definitely one of those things where it's like there's definitely the 80s idea of the like greasy burger joint. I mean, yes, the dream sequence thing, absolutely, but also the idea of like the greasy, large, sloppy like burger joint person. I mean, we have a similar character in like You Can't Do That on Television, at the cafeteria, you know, it's like there's Barf. Yeah, there's all of these. That's definitely this 80s trope of like the sloppy chef.
Yeah, but it's very funny, and I think that the Roy Stalin character is really well done in that he's not. It's like I compared him to Ted McGinley, and I think that's both obvious and intentional that he's meant to evoke Ted McGinley, who the year before was playing a similar character in Revenge of the Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
But Roy Stalin is funnier.
He is so funny. And unfortunately, this is only one of two movies that the actor Aaron Dozier was in. He was also in a movie that same year called Hail to the Chief. And his credit is The Soldier. So I think that this was just like a lightning in a bottle situation for this young actor. And it's unfortunate that nothing ever happened with him again. See, now I need to go watch One Crazy Summer again and remind myself who played the like antagonist in that one.
Oh, you know what? And I can almost remember his name. off the top of my head. I know it's not Mark Metcalf plays the father. Mark Metcalf, who was Niedermeyer in Animal House.
Right.
But, and then the son was played by Matt Mulhern, was it? Or something, Mulhern, or I remember he was on that TV show Major Dad with Gerald McCraney.
I'm just going to go down the whole list. We got John Cusack, Demi Moore, Curtis Armstrong, Bobcat Goldthwait, Joel Murray, William Hickley as Old Man Beckerstead.
William Hickey. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe Flaherty, who we all know and love. We have Mark Metcalf, John Mustazik as Stain, Kimberly Foster. Oh, Matt Mulhern, Teddy Beckerstead. There you go.
Oh, Matt Mulhern. Okay.
Mulhern. Yeah.
So, yeah, Matt Mulhern. Teddy Beckerstead.
Who now is on who now is on every procedural: Blue Bloods, CSI, Law and Order, Fringe, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, Rescue Me, Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Wow. Jag.
Okay.
Law and Order.
So everyone's grandparents have seen him in something.
Wow. He's got to be one of those actors where they're just like, I recognize him from somewhere. And it's just like every other show that they also watch. So
but yeah, I remember. And that's honestly, that's like when in reading up on this movie, it, like you said, was not a financial success at the box office, but really picked up a following both through video rentals and HBO. And I honestly don't remember the first time I ever saw Better Off Dead. Better Off Dead is not one of those movies that is sacred or personal to me. I like it. I enjoy it. One Crazy Summer was the movie that I remember being on HBO on repeat.
Yeah, right. And this one came first.
Yeah. And interestingly, I was reading that Steve Holland has talked about doing a semi-sequel to One Crazy Summer with Bobcat Goldthwait and Joel Murray involved.
Right. And they worked together, was it maybe like 10 years ago? Maybe a little bit less?
God Bless America.
God Bless America, yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that was 2011 maybe, so that could be coming up on 10-year anniversary. That is a hell of a movie.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of like what else we haven't brought up that we should be bringing up. There's just so many wonderful, wonderful moments in this.
Well, how about like first the big climax, and you know it's one of those other tropes of an 80s movie. And in fact, in One Crazy Summer, it's basketball. He's hoops.
And the regatta. Right.
So there's always that big sports. There's always some big competitive regatta. There's a regatta in summer rental.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Right at the end of that. So at the end of this, you have the K-12 and where Lane, Curtis Armstrong breaks his ski accidentally.
Yeah.
And then Johnny shows up, and in trying to escape from Johnny, Lane ends up just going on one ski and ends up at the top of the mountain, even though he's
I don't understand the physics of it.
Logic. So he winds up at the top where Roy has been waiting for him, and Roy says, "Oh, I guess he's not going to show."
Yeah.
And then there he is, and he does it on one ski, and that's another great. It's Curtis Armstrong, similar to the "We've Got Bush" line.
Yeah.
He's doing it on one ski.
Well, Curtis Armstrong is great in this scene because he tells you everything that's happening, because they're all watching and he's got binoculars, so he's telling the crowd what's happening. And he's like, there's someone behind them on a bicycle. Like, he's just telling you everything that's happening. It's great, because otherwise it would just be like music and people skiing and someone yelling $2.
Right. And what I think is so great is that even after he beats Roy and wins,
yes,
he's not done. He has to fight Ricky.
He fights. Yes, they are in a ski pole fencing fence off.
And it's like Ricky. It's almost like Ricky is the bigger. It's almost like when Lane races Roy, it's not even really about Roy anymore. And I mean, Lane stands up to him. And by the way, how it was interesting to see is that scene, I guess, in the cafeteria when Lane challenges him and he stands up. And that's really the one time and I just was like, man, like John Cusack is much taller than the other guy. And he challenges him. But then it's not even about that anymore because...
Yeah, so this is one issue that I have with this movie, is that you have this climactic moment at the K-12, and, you know, at the beginning, it's like he would be doing this to try to win back the favor of Beth. And he's really doing this for himself. You know, he prior to that had spent a day and a half with Monique, you know, like really... bonding and getting to know each other super duper well, and he's like smitten for her and everything. And as they leave, she says that they have unfinished business, language lessons, the language of love. And you know, he's doing this race not for Beth or not even for Monique. He's doing it for himself. Now, the fencing with Ricky with the ski poles, that is for Monique, which is kind of like, look, he doesn't have to do that to like date Monique. Let's be real.
No, but he needs to do it to get Ricky to back off.
Yeah, but it's like he could have gotten Ricky to back off. But anyway, but then afterwards, but then after that, he grabs Monique and throws her over his shoulder and marches away. And I didn't love that. That like she was like the prize.
Right. Yeah,
I just didn't love that.
And there we go with the 80s and
I mean the scene itself is super fun. I mean, I really did enjoy the whole idea of this fencing with ski poles, especially with Ricky.
So what's interesting is that there's the contrast between his relationship with Beth, which feels very forced, and his relationship with Monique, which is very natural.
Right.
And you even see that like when he first meets Beth, how he and Beth are just both in their own heads.
I'm just going to play a clip of that. So there's a flashback where Charles and Lane are playing football in a park and they see Beth and a friend of hers, and they go sit down and talk to them. And then they kind of just drift off into Beth and Lane's inner monologues.
So, how do you like Greendale?
Fine.
And the school system, you find it adequate?
School hasn't started yet.
Oh. She itched her nose. I wonder if that was some kind of unconscious message to me that there's something on my nose.
That's funny. He wiped his nose after I
don't
did.
really like school that much, but...
Maybe I got some dirt on my nose when I itched it. God, he's too embarrassed to tell me. I must look sickening.
There she goes again. What could it be? Dirt? Relish? Relish on my nose? How gross. She might think it's a... Nazis. Oh, not that. Oh, no. Please, please don't let it be a booger. Not now. Please, God.
So they're both just vigorously wiping their noses, and it's a cute scene.
It's very airplane-esque, Zucker Abrams Zucker-ish.
This movie is very Zucker Abrams Zucker-ish. There's a lot of moments that are, completely outrageous, that it's like, what is happening? Like characters in the background where you're just like, what is that person doing? They are completely unrelated to everything else going on, but they are a weirdo.
Which makes sense. I mean, we're a year after Top Secret and 5 years after Airplane. So
sure.
Totally makes sense. But, it has a personality of its own.
Oh,
and I appreciate that about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Dan, all these years later, what would you see happening with this property nowadays?
Oh boy. Well,
it's a tough one.
It's a comedy that has teen suicide as and like depression and mental health as a subplot, which is not something to be taken lightly these days. And I'm not saying that there's not a room, that there's not space for that, or even space for like comedy around that, but it's got to be something like delicately and deftly handled. And a movie that came to mind was Wristcutter's A Love Story, which was a dark comedy that had teen suicide as its springing off point. Of course, they are dead in it.
Yeah.
But, you know, in thinking about just the high school, I do think that we need a new high school comedy. And I know like there's a lot of high school TV series, and I think it's like high school is such a source for drama.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there's, you know, plenty on television, but in terms of movies, when was the last time there was a really great high school comedy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of something like Love, Simon. That was pretty good.
But was that like this type of like
No. See, the thing is, the equivalent to this would be Pen 15 on Hulu. You know, this like outrageous, I mean, they're not in high school, they're in junior high, but like this outrageous coming of age era where there's the, you know, all of the things that you go through when you're a young teenager, but it's done as a series.
Right. And that's great. I would like to see a resurgence or some type of high school movie that, you know, in the tradition of John Hughes and Savage Steve Holland, that takes that surreal look and that shows high school from, I mean, of course, not high school this past year.
Mm-hmm. No, be very different.
There'd be a lot of masturbation. I don't know. I'm just
okay.
I mean, I don't know, but right. I would say, you know, in thinking about like if we were having this conversation a year ago or 2 years ago, if this was episode 1,
short circuit,
you know, I would be saying that, yeah, like today's high school, it's very different. It's very different. Like the high school itself is different, but teenagers are very much the same. And still, like, it's not going to change because biologically, when you're a teenager, you're searching for identity. You're trying different identities on. You don't know who should I be trying to please my parents? Should I be trying to please my friends? Should I be trying to be this, do that? And, you know, there's a lot more individuality. Like, I think high school movies in the 80s are very, you know, they're very cliquey. Even The Breakfast Club breaks it down to like, I guess the 5 central cliques. But like, if you were to do that now, you would have to add so much more.
Totally.
And you've got social media. And I guess that's where Pen 15 Pen 15 comes into the, you know, equation because that's what it's doing. And I guess like Lady Bird, but Lady Bird was much more, but Lady Bird was very real.
Yeah.
And I didn't see 8th Grade, but part of the reason why I didn't see 8th Grade was because just from seeing the trailer, I was like, that looks too real.
It's really good. Yes.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
And I cringe at some of that because I recognize the reality, but I would like to see the exaggerated humor. I just don't know if I don't know if I would go with a straight up remake because I feel like the, you know, mental health, depression, suicide is serious. I mean, at the school where I teach, we've lost students to suicide and not, I mean, like you know, it's not something to trivialize. And I wouldn't want there to be a film that makes light of it. So
Right.
I would almost ignore that and go, I mean, like, romantic relationships are so different now. And there's almost a more, and I don't, like, in the school where I teach, I'm like blissfully unaware of most that goes on romantically, unless it's happening on the bench outside my classroom.
Okay.
So my classroom has a bench outside, but I had heard one of the other teachers call it the crying bench once.
Oh no.
Because yeah, so I think, like, if it were done delicately and deftly with the exaggeration in the right places, a satire of teenage life in the 21st century would be, I think, would be really fun. And it's hard to say, because every time I think about, a movie, that's not how we're digesting our entertainment these days. And it's kind of like, well, does Pen 15 kind of, do the job for it? Do we need a movie when we have a series like that?
Pen 15 is so good. It's so good. Yeah, I don't know.
And exaggerated but I think I would like to see that, like, Savage Steve Holland spirit taken to it. And in terms of Savage Steve Holland, and this is kind of a weird place to go because we're not talking about it, but I would like to see him do a sequel to UHF.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like
I want his comeback, but I want him to do that.
Yeah, we definitely got this wonderful taste of this incredible, talent in film. And, he took this other path. And I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if, he stayed in film. I mean, granted, he had great success in animated television, but, his work, he left us with such great gems.
And I guess so. And a couple of other ideas that I had floating around. Of course, a Better Off Dead musical would be fun. I mean, the song Better Off Dead that's been in my head, and Elizabeth Daly just, so good.
Great
but
voice.
Also, I mean, should we not revisit Lane Meyer all these years later, 35 years later? And
you think you would?
To me, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, what if, like, Lane Meyer became Martin Blank?
Didn't you say that about a different John Cusack character or a different character? What if they became Martin Blank? I don't
What
know.
if all of John Cusack's characters were just Martin Blank, and he's working through it with Alan Arkin? And
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah, I think that's really
I
interesting.
love Grosse Pointe Blank, so.
Yeah, clearly look back to episode, 80 something. Anyway,
what would you do?
My ideas are very different from what you're talking about, because I became really intrigued by some of the side characters, especially Badger. Now, I would love to see some sort of Badger movie or series about, maybe starting where this one ends, where he's in the rocket ship leaving Earth's orbit or whatever, and, like, entering Badger's world for a while. I think that'd be fun. It's like all the while everyone was focused on my crazy brother, I was doing all this stuff, and, like, nobody even paid attention.
Would he speak?
I think so.
What if you brought back Johnny and he's like a mob, he's like a collector for the mob?
Yeah, right. My other idea was, and I know that we can't do this, even if it's recast, it wouldn't be the same, because Vincent Schiavelli is, no longer with us, pour one out. And also it just would have to take place in that moment in time. But a a parody of the A Teacher series about Vincent Schiavelli and Beth, where it's this, student teacher romance, but it's them.
Oh man.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, in this one we've got Kate Mara, and she's this attractive young teacher, but instead of that, let's make it Vincent Schiavelli, who's like mid-50s and looks the way he does.
Yeah, that man.
Here's the thing:
there's another subject. Yeah.
Here's the thing: is like my suggestions for this one are so out there. I feel because this movie is so very specific and means a very certain thing, and the reason why it is a cult classic is because of these like centerpiece scenes, the claymation hamburger Frankenstein monster guitar, Van Halen,
that
the $2
the $2. Yeah. Gee, Ricky, sorry your mom blew up.
Yeah.
It's such a shame when people be throwing away a perfectly good white boy.
Yes. Yeah. It's just
so many great lines. Well, I'm thinking that the teacher satire could fit well into, if you were going to kind of do a loosey-goosey remake of Better Off Dead, like kind of a modern day high school comedy, because that's something that, I mean, yes, it's a serious issue.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's something that you could satirize and parody a little more safely than teen suicide.
I agree.
And because also the trope is that it's the, Kate Mara looking, teacher, like it's the, 20 something.
Sure. Yeah.
And to flip the script and have it be, Vincent Schiavelli.
Yeah.
Or whoever.
I think that because it is an older man that definitely puts it into shakier territory. But even still.
But what if it was, a good friend of Vincent Schiavelli, what if it was Danny DeVito?
What if it was Danny DeVito? It's what I always ask.
Because like what you're saying, the whole, like the old, yes, that is awful. But Vincent Schiavelli makes
it's Buggy Ding Dong.
It's Buggy Ding Dong. Yes. But putting like having that type of actor and where you go with the casting, and also like what you display actually going on. Like if you actually, like, I wouldn't show them, I wouldn't suggest that they're having sex, but yes, like, that they're going out on dates. I don't know. That would be weird.
Right.
But
right.
I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't, go casting anyone that would be slightly, no offense to Danny DeVito, but
yeah.
I think it would just be funny if, or even if you just had like that teacher and you have that there's like one of the characters, one of the kids, one of the students like has a crush on that teacher.
Right.
And her friends are just like, what? And she's just like, yeah, I don't know what it is. When he starts using those geometry terms.
Yeah.
That's what I love about that scene. And I would love to hear from someone who actually knows math well to like, what is he even talking about in that?
Yeah, I was wondering
scene?
that too as we were playing
sense?
the clip. It's so truly bizarre. I really have no idea.
But yeah, I think there are a lot of aspects of modern day teenage life that certainly call for satire and parody. But again, you got to handle these things carefully.
Yeah. So Dan, I teased it at the beginning of the show. We have a new segment, and I am very excited about this one. We'll see how it goes. But there's something that I have a bit of a fascination with, and that's horse names and also boat names. And I am a big fan of a certain horse website that has a registry of horse names with, genealogy dating back generations and generations. And made me wonder, some of the movies that we talk about, do they have horses or boats that are named after them or have names that relate to them? So, for example, Dan, I ask you and our audience, I hope that you play along at home, in your car, on your walk, whatever you're doing. Do you think that our last episode, Bowfinger, do you think that there's a horse named Bowfinger, a boat named Bowfinger, or both? Or neither?
Now, question, if it's a boat, would you pronounce it Bowfinger?
I couldn't tell you.
Sorry. It does sound like it would be a good name for a horse.
Okay.
I don't know. I might call it Bobby Bowfinger. I might even call my horse Jiff Ramsey, Jefferson Ramsey.
Jefferson Ramsey. Okay. Is that your final answer?
Oh, I didn't realize I was my answer is yes, I think there's a horse.
There is indeed a horse named Bowfinger, born in 2001 to Miracle Duling and Choctaw Brave. Truly, truly phenomenal that there's so many generations going back for, let's see, we've got great grandparents named Pillow Talk, Karen's Choice, Speedy Crown, Dear Rodney. We've got Titan Hanover, Earl's Princess Martha. I just love these horse names.
Is this Bowfinger's lineage?
This is Bowfinger. Yeah, that's exactly.
Because Pillow Talk is a movie.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, Dan, do you think that there were any horses or boats or both or neither relating to Better Off Dead?
It's such a cult movie. It's such a classic, especially among Gen Xers who I suppose now would be owning / naming horses and boats. By the way, my favorite fictional boat name is the C Word.
Oh, yeah.
If only for the joke that arose from it in Arrested Development.
It's so good.
But I am going to say, yes, there has got to be a boat or a horse inspired by Better. I can't think of that. I wouldn't name a horse Better Off Dead. That's
okay.
just... That would be bad.
Well, something that you have to keep in mind is that...
Savage Steve. I would call it Savage Steve.
Savage Steve? Well, while you are saying that, I'm actually looking up to see if there's anything in here. I did find 2 horses that have Better Off Dead related names. Looking up Savage Steve right now. No Savage Steve horses, but we do have a horse named $2. $2 was born in 1982 to £1 and Lazala. And then we also have a horse named Everybody Wants Some. I believe there's actually 2 horses named Everybody Wants Some. But here's one from 2003, born to Sonny's Top Gun and Skip a Silent. Yeah.
Isn't $2 the minimum bet you can put down at the track?
I don't know, but let me see how many $2 there were.
It's been quite
there's
a long
only
time
one named
since
$2.
My days at the track.
Now, it looks like I did save a boat name, but it looks like the way that I copied and pasted it did not. You can't copy over the same thing, so I'm going to have to think of how I do that differently, but I don't remember what the boat name was for this one. Again, this is the first time we're doing this, so we're learning. But I'm going to have to keep that in mind next time I'm doing it.
So $2 is the minimum bet for a win, place, or show wager.
That is so funny.
At the horse track. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there are
Can't
plenty
believe I
of
remember
boats
that.
named Beth. I'm sure there's plenty of boats named Monique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what other, so if you were going to name a horse or a boat for after Better Off Dead, what would you use?
Oh man. It's so funny because there are so many things, like Everybody Wants Some is such a perfect name for a boat or a horse. That is like a very typical style of a name.
Yeah. It was also a Van Halen song and a Richard Linklater movie much more recently.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that is a really good question. I don't know. How about you? What do you got?
Well, I mean, other than Savage Steve, I guess I would probably go with Roy Stalin. I think I would just name the horse Roy Stalin.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Ray Stalin. Let me see if there are any horses named Stalin. That would be really weird. There are 4 horses named Stalin. This one, born in 1965 to Loma Star and Shercash. Oh, had a great grandfather named Clark Gable. How about that?
But 1965 to name a horse Stalin. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now we have one in 2001 to Marwin and Kickan. Welcome to Marwin, I guess. Yeah, so that's 2001. Yeah. So if I was to...
Kim Darby. Call it Kim Darby.
Kim Darby. I don't know, maybe something having to do with Ricky. I don't know. Let me see if there's anything named Ricky Smith.
Ricky's mom. Ricky's mom.
Ricky's mom.
Call it Ricky's mom. Yeah. She's great too.
She's wonderful.
Great too. We did not cite Ricky's mom there, but another MVP of this movie.
Absolutely.
Which you can't have more than one MVP. So
there is a horse born in 1947 named Ricky's mom. So there you go.
But probably, but in 1947, almost definitely not inspired by Better Off
Ricky's
Dead.
mom in Better Off Dead was inspired by this horse.
That's true. That could be the case.
Yeah, I wish it showed you where they were from. That'd be interesting. But beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, if any of them are from Greendale, California.
Which I have to imagine is like,
same...
I was thinking like Glendale.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, who knows where it is. I was wondering if for the show Community, if they took the name Greendale. Well, yeah, it's in Northern California. So Greendale is an unincorporated community in Yolo County, California. It is located on the Sacramento Northern Railroad, 4.5 miles southwest of Clarksburg.
Huh. Okay, so there's an actual town. Okay. Yeah, they do say that they're in Northern California. But anyway, we're already past an hour and a half here. So why don't we talk about what we're going to do on our next episode / month? Because we're dipping into a new month. We're going to do a theme month here.
It's February, and February is when we traditionally celebrate President's Week. And I think it's hopefully finally safe to talk about presidents.
We've avoided talking about presidents for 100 episodes because we've been in an administration that makes us uncomfortable to think about presidents.
But very appropriately, the movie that we're going to be talking about is about when a very immoral man is replaced by a very good man as president. And of course, we're talking about 1993's Dave, directed by Ivan Reitman, starring Kevin Kline, Sigourney Weaver, Frank Langella, Ben Kingsley, Kevin Dunn,
Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
So, and
Ving Rhames.
So we also have to mention that this was one of the runners up for our 100th episode of voting, the largest presence on Twitter for this movie. So, I'm excited. This is one of my favorite movies. It's one of my favorite movies. So
it's a great movie. I'm excited that I can finally watch it. Without getting furious.
Yeah. It's got great Arnold Schwarzenegger cameo that we'll talk about.
Wonderful Arnold Schwarzenegger cameo.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I can't wait.
All right. Well, Dan, as you and the Reed brothers are at the green light, I wish you a good journey.
And a good journey to you.